Hello and welcome to Running with God. I'm your host, Jeane'tte. I'm glad for you to be with me today. Today we're going to talk about Samhain. It's also known as Samhain, Halloween. It's integrated with the Day of the Dead and All Souls Day. And we are going to discuss the origins of it and the place it has or does not have in a Christian's home and life. Samhain began in days of old in the Celtic and Druid religion, and it was part of their way of uh, trying to appease the souls of the dead, as well as it was trying to ward off demons that they thought were going to come get them. You see, at this time of year, there were sacrifices that was made, not only of their harvests, but also of people. And they thought that the reason this happened is because the demons or shapeshifters or whatever you would like to call them would come after them and harvest them. They would dress up in costumes to trick the demons, to trick those from the underworld and really what was familiar spirits that they thought was their dead loved ones and those that they knew, so that they would leave them alone for another year. They would dance around bonfires and throw in different gifts, um, whether it be human, fruit, grain, whatever it was they thought that was needed. And they would do this until it was daylight and they thought they were safe. There are customs that we have that have translated down through the years and changed. And they have become more modernized and watered down. And people do not realize that just as the Satanists believe today, and just as they did then, that they believe on this day, Samhain, Samhain, whatever you choose to call it, is the day in which the scroll has been closed from God and opened up for Satan and the spirit world, and the beginning of the darkness from the fall through the end of winter has begun from the solstice, and this is their high holy days. This is the time in which they believe that they can gain the most power. And this is not just a fairy tale. This is not just a story from the past. This is something that is still presently practiced today. Um, the word tells us in Ephesians 5 and 11 that we are to have no fellowship with the works of darkness, rather reprove them. And that is what I'm doing today. I am reproving the works of the darkness. Satan wants to try to infiltrate us in each and every way that he can, in the church or otherwise, in our daily lives, trying to deceive us, trying to have us be tolerant in every way that is possible, so that we'll become blinded and part of the apostate church. But God does not want us to be deceived. He does not want us to be led astray. Those pumpkins that you are going to carve, or you have carved, or thinking about carving for yourself, for your children, or for your grandchildren, they're not something to take lightly. They originated in the beginning by the use of human candles that were made as a sacrifice and put in the carved pumpkins, so that they would ward off evil spirits from the home that they were placed in front of. It also allowed the people that were dressed up and the children that were dressed up to come to the home and know that they were welcome and they would not receive a trick instead of a treat, because the owner themselves, whenever the people that practiced this holiday could come upon them and take them over if they did not follow this practice. It is like a blasphemy of the blood of the Lamb on the doorpost. Instead, it was, "Don't harm me, we recognize you." And they would leave stuff for them. And sometimes the Druids, Celts, would take whatever they wanted from the barns, the animals, the children, or the wives, and use them otherwise. Um, the children that were dressed up that came from home to home were normally poor children. They had no food hardly, and so they took this as a day in which they could take advantage of trick or treat. And whenever they would go to the door of a home that honored this tradition, they were handed out soul cakes. You will hear me refer to a soul eater off and on. It is not something that's very common in our American way, but it is common in Ireland and the people who have come from there. They are very familiar with it, whether it be in their folklore or in their traditions that they carry on today. A soul cake was used uh, and given out for the prayers of the dead, of the people of the home that passed out the cake. And the children ate those cake in promise that they would pray for the souls to become out of purgatory. And we do not believe in purgatory. Jesus emptied out Abraham's bosom and the divide, and now there's only heaven or hell. There is no purgatory. And for those of you who practice Halloween, and some people who call themselves Christians, and you believe that you can go to a grave and you can send someone onto the light, you're not sending anyone onto the light at all. You are not a light worker. You are talking to familiar spirit, and that familiar spirit will not go into heaven. That familiar spirit will have the door open to go with you. In another video, I touched on the topic of people when they go to graveyards and they try to talk to their loved ones through the use of necrophonics, soul uh, boxes, spirit boxes, and Ouija boards, and anything else that they know to use. And these practices will be used by people that are Christians and non Christians um, because they're deceived. As a believer and a follower of Christ, we are also told to give no place to the enemy. And when you are practicing these things, you are giving place to the enemy. It doesn't matter how you want to water it down, modernize it. You are still practicing something that is forbidden because it does not point to God at all. The belief that has been passed down. Also, one of the things they did to appease the dead relatives, friends, etc., was to leave food on their graves and things that they might miss or enjoy from when they were alive, which I have mentioned before that their spirit is not there. They're either with the Father or they're in hell. They are not here on this earth roaming. Banshees are a totally different subject that I will get to one day. If you look on a testimony I have of one of the people on here that's named Courtney, she'll explain to you that she was drawn to witchcraft because of the practice of dressing up, not only in everyday life with school or family, but from the church. This was an attraction that should never have been. There should never have been a door open from a church. And I am going to tell you right now, if you believe that it's okay to have trick or treat or trunk or treat or any other name you would like to call it, in the name of the Lord, I'm sorry. This is not a good practice. You are not coming out from among the world. You're becoming part of the world to draw them in, just like the Romans did with Catholicism. You are blending in a tradition of men, and that will not work because whenever they blend in other things, then they will not obey the word in other areas of their life because a little leaven messes up the whole lot. Many people also practice this custom not only during Halloween, Samhain, but they do it whenever a birthday or the date of the death and burial of their loved one. You're not doing anything except for appeasing yourself and compromising. It is a hard thing when we lose a loved one, but we cannot practice the things that belong to the enemy We must do and obey the word and keep ourselves holy and separate and apart from the things that are of the enemy. People such as Anton LaVey and Paul Ramirez and other people that were either in or come out of witchcraft that claim to be Satanists, they say that they are happy or were happy whenever Christians would allow their children to practice these customs because at least one day out of the year they had themselves open to Satan. They were worshiping him, and they knew that one day, that because of that door, that Satan had a possibility of taking those people over. Because you see, we are to train up a child in the way they should go. And when we train them up in the way they should go, we do not teach them compromise. And when we do, the enemy has a foothold. Do not give the enemy a foothold in your home. Do not give the enemy a foothold in your future generations. Resist the devil. Do not be a part of the world. Thank you. Have a blessed day.